So the focus of the Quakecon panel of Fallout 76 was supposed to be on like character systems, leveling, and perks. And we got a ton of info in that category and a pretty good idea of how that's all going to work. In this video, I'm going to talk about none of that. I'll have a standalone video looking at that. I already made a video looking at all the different perks we saw and all the new features that kind of came out of those perks descriptions. And I also made a different video talking about all the new PvP elements we found out about. This video is kind of going to be a collection of all the other features they mentioned, and there are quite a few of them. I would actually say some of the most interesting parts of the panel are contained in this video, and I think they shed a lot of light about the game as a whole. If you guys are enjoying the Fallout 76 content, you can subscribe or like this video because there's going to be a lot more coming. But here are all the new features we found out about that are coming to Fallout 76 from Quakecon. So right off the bat, Todd Howard really exclaimed how Fallout 76 really feels like a lot of the other Fallout's experience. I know a lot of us are hating on the game and don't necessarily want to believe that, but that's been a narrative they continue to iterate. I don't know what it was, but just the way he phrased it this time, he basically said that 80% of the game is like other Fallouts, got me hopeful. I know most people will still be worried about the game, but either way, until we actually play it, going off what the people that have played it said, even if they are the developer, seems like it might be the safest bet. One thing they actually did show us a bit of was the character creator. They basically said it's going to be pretty similar to Fallout 4's, but a little bit better. They didn't really say how it would be a bit better, just that it would be. One new feature coming with Fallout 76 is you're going to be at any point able to change the sex or appearance of your character. So if you're halfway through the game and you're like, alright, I'm tired of being a female, you can switch to a male, or totally change the way your character looks. In addition, they talked about how you're going to be able to take ID card photos. It wasn't entirely clear as to what those photos would be used for outside of load screens. So basically at any point throughout the game, you're going to be able to take a photo and you could choose different poses, expressions, and in addition, different camera settings like the field of view or different filters. We saw a bit of this in some of the E3 gameplay, but now we get a lot more context. You're going to be prompted to do this inside of the vault, but again, you could also take these photos outside of the vault and they will be applied to load screens as you fast travel. Something interesting here though, the only time they actually talked about load screens was fast traveling. In Fallout 76 thus far, we haven't seen anyone actually enter through a doorway and have to load an interior space. Intuitively, it would follow that that'll probably be present in the game, but again, we haven't seen it, and even now they only talk about load screens through fast traveling. Could this be a kind of world space that is just always an open world? Now when you open a door, it'll open up into the building. You're not going to hit a load screen. I'm not saying that's confirmed or denied, just something interesting to note. Something else that was interesting, and actually one of the tidbits of gameplay we saw, was how far you actually load in the distance, or rather how far was being loaded by the server that you could actually see. So this gameplay is right after you walk out of the vault, and look at that smoke in the background. That's pretty freaking far, and I'm not sure it's actually farther than you could see in Fallout 4, but it definitely feels like it is. This would follow because a lot of this stuff is going to be handled server side now rather than on your own machine, and although I'm sure there'll still be certain configuration options to actually lower the view distance for performance benefits, it still looks like it's going to be pretty far, and I'm definitely excited about that. Another thing I spotted in the background of the footage that I'm not entirely sure is a feature or just kind of a sign is this trading post. It looks like one of those things that would be maybe a neutral area where you can't actually engage in PvP combat, but actually just interact with other players, maybe talk to people. They also mentioned that there's going to be stashes scattered around the map where you can store all of your junk, because when you die in this game, you're going to lose all of your junk. This seems like it could be one of those stashes. Again, this isn't confirmed, it's total speculation, but it just looks like it's something based off all these signs and what these signs themselves actually say. A crossbow was confirmed as being one of the new weapons coming in Fallout 76. Through one of the perk cards that I covered again in a different video, we found out that there's going to be a new category of weapons known as exotic weapons, similar how there's rifles, pistols, and heavy weapons in Fallout 3, 4, and New Vegas. This will likely be in that category. We also saw some bows on the perk card itself, and in some of the other gameplay we saw things like a black powder pistol, a flintlock pistol and rifle, which is somehow different than the black powder one. I really like this. We don't actually know how many new weapons are coming in this game, but it definitely seems like we're getting everything from Fallout 4 in addition to a ton of new stuff. When you open up perk card packs, you're going to get perk cards, but also a joke and a piece of gum. Todd Howard said at this moment that you actually can chew the gum to reduce your hunger for a short while. Ironically enough, this is actually the opposite effect that it has in real life. When you chew gum in real life, your body thinks it has to get ready to digest something because you are chewing, and actually makes you a little bit hungrier. Not really relevant to the game, but I just thought it was interesting either way. Mutations are a new feature coming in Fallout 76. After being around radiation for a while, you actually will have a higher likelihood of contracting a mutation. They're going to be pretty similar to traits in previous games in that they have both a benefit but also a cost associated with them. There's going to be ways to cure certain ones, but also if you like the benefit, you can make them more permanent. Well, we got to verbally hear an example of one mutation that with bird bone. It would allow you to jump higher but actually lower your overall strength, so your carry weight would be decreased. Something that really stood out to me as to the way they were handling mutations in this was that they were maybe a feature they thought about later on in the development cycle and are still very work in progress. That's totally speculation, but just the fact that we haven't actually ever seen a mutation in any of the gameplay or even in this past gameplay where they show off perks, and mutations kind of coincide with perks as having similar functionality makes me think that they're still working on a lot of those, as well as some of the physical alterations that are said to come with certain mutations. That, coupled with the fact that the beta is coming so late in October, makes me feel like the game has a lot of progress to be made. We know they're reusing a lot of stuff from Fallout 4, so maybe they're not quite as far ahead in the development cycle as they would otherwise be with some of their other games at this stage. I wouldn't say this is cause for concern. I'm sure they'll get everything figured out, and their studio is significantly larger, just that the development time for Fallout 76 was seemingly much shorter than a lot of other Fallout games. Speaking of development time, they also mentioned how the game is going to be constantly evolving. They've kind of echoed that, but this time they gave an example that a year after release, or even 2 years after the release, it'll probably be a very different game. I presume this means they're going to tweak different values, probably buff or debuff different perk cards, weapons, things like that, as well as actually adding in new content with the free DLCs. Online games typically make a lot of their money by having long lifespans, so you do spend a lot of extra money on cosmetic microtransactions. While one of the developers was talking about his experience, he mentioned how he modified his sniper rifle in-game, which was originally a hunting rifle, and actually added in a barrel extension. We haven't seen a ton of weapon modifications, but that's something that wasn't present in Fallout 4. Unless I'm just reading too deeply into this, you had things like compensators, silencers, but no actual barrel extensions that would increase your range. Fairly simple, but definitely cool to see that they are actually implementing at least some new weapon attachments. There's going to be a blueprint system implemented with this game. So let's say you build up a house that you're really happy with and maybe took a little while to actually construct through workshop items. Well, now you're going to be able to create a blueprint of that house and easily place it back down if it gets destroyed. They also talk about how the reason they actually have destruction of your workshop items and camps in Fallout 76 is so you can't trap other players inside of buildings. So it seems like it would follow as a result of that, if you actually destroy an item in Fallout 76, it'll kind of open it up, or maybe it'll collapse completely so you could actually walk through it. I'm not sure if this is really a feature, but they also mentioned how it's going to be super valuable and powerful to lure people back to your camp that you are in PvP combat with. So maybe you start running away from them, but then your turrets will lock onto them as you do approach your camp and be able to auto-detect other players that are kind of enemies to you or currently in a combat state with you. You can craft various instruments in this game, and they also mentioned in this one a tuba is coming. We kind of saw some gameplay of some of the various instruments, but now we're getting a more kind of solid clarification of this. At the time of E3, they originally only intended for you to be able to communicate with other players through the emote wheel. We saw a bit of this in some of the gameplay from E3, but since then they realized that wasn't really effective enough at actually conveying yourself in different interactions, so they're also adding in proximity voice chat. That meaning that you could hear other people that are near you when they are talking. You can of course mute other players if they're too obnoxious or annoying, but either way, this is a feature I know a lot of people were wondering about. You're also going to have a chat functionality through people that are currently in your group that you're kind of playing co-op with. This Fallout's going to feature more licensed music than any other Fallout game, so that meaning songs that weren't created originally for this game but actually are from the 1940s, 50s, 60s, or even some of them are from like the 80s and 90s. And also there are going to be multiple radio stations in this. I know a lot of people were wondering about radio hosts, especially considering that there are no human NPCs. They didn't clarify about that. They never actually mentioned a radio host, but they also didn't say there aren't going to be radio hosts, or even if you can host your own radio station. And unfortunately, I saved the worst for last, or at least the worst in my eyes. They had a question about private servers. They kind of echoed how they're committed to getting them working, especially with mods. They love the modding community, etc., etc. But based on the way they answered this question, it doesn't seem like they're any closer to actually getting private servers working than they were originally at E3. It still seems like they're probably going to come maybe a considerable amount of time after the release of the game. It still seems like they're not entirely clear as to how this is actually going to work in the game. But either way, those are all the new features we heard about from Quakecon outside of the PvP details and the perk details. I think a lot of these are really interesting. I like that we had more of a dialogue this time around. I'm personally pretty disappointed in the Q&A part of this panel. I feel like there could have been a lot more questions, a lot more hard-hitting questions. I would have really loved to see some more concrete answers about mods, whether that be the when or how of their functionality. Are they going to be on Nexus? Will they only be on Bethesda.net? Either way, this is going to wrap it up for this video. Again, if you guys enjoyed this, you can check out some of my other Fallout 76 coverage, or you can subscribe to actually just see that as it does come out. I should have a few more videos out over the next couple of days, but then also back into some Fallout 4 stuff. Either way, as always, again, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.